Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Welcome to the East Room. Please be seated and we shall proceed. Helen?
Cutting off military sales to China does not seem to have made an impression on the rulers there, and they've become more repressive. What else are you going to do to express this nation's outrage? And do you have any other plans?
Helen, I think that the position we took, aiming not at the Chinese people, but at the military arrangements, was well received around the world and was followed by many countries. Right after we did that, many of the European countries followed suit. The events in China are such that we obviously deplore the violence and the loss of life, urge restoration of order with recognition of the rights of the people, and I'm still hopeful that China will come together, respecting the urge for democracy on the part of the people. And what we will do in the future, I will announce at appropriate times. But right now, we are engaged in diplomatic efforts, and other countries are doing the same thing. And let's hope that it does have a ameliorating effect on this situation.
And, does your support of human rights and democracy extend to other places in the world, like South Africa, the West Bank, where they've been fighting a lot longer than in China?
Yes, it does.
Repression?
It certainly does. Concern is universal, and that's what I want the Chinese leaders to understand. You see, we've taken this action. I am one who lived in China. I understand the importance of the relationship with the Chinese people and with the government. It is in the interest of the United States to have good relations, but because of the question that you properly raised, we have to speak out in favor of human rights. And we aren't going to remake the world, but we should stand for something. And there's no question in the minds of these students that the United States is standing in their corners. I'll tell you a little anecdote. When our cars went out to the university to pick up some of the students and bring them out, they were met by universal applause. And then the students in this country have been quite supportive of the steps that I have taken. We had a few into the Oval Office the other day, and I must say my heart goes out to them. They cannot talk to their families, and it's very difficult. But yes, the United States must stand wherever, in whatever country, universally for human rights. And let me say, you mentioned South Africa. Absolutely. Appalling apartheid must end. Yeah, Terry.
Mr. President, can the United States ever have normal relations with China as long as the hardliners believed responsible for the massacre, such as Deng Xiaoping and Premier Li Peng, remain in power? In other words, what will it take to get U.S.-Chinese relations back to normal?
It will take a recognition of the rights of individuals and respect for the rights of those who disagree. And you have cited two leaders, one of whom I might tell you was that you mentioned Deng Xiaoping. I'm not sure the American people know this. He was thrown out by the Cultural Revolution crowd back in the late 60s, came back in. 1976 was put out again because he was seen as too forward-looking. And all I'm saying from that experience is let's not jump at conclusions as to how individual leaders in China feel when we aren't sure of that. But the broad question that you ask, we can't have totally normal relations unless there's a recognition of the validity of the students' aspirations. And I think that will happen. We had a visit right here upstairs in the White House with Mr. Wan Li. And I don't know whether he's in or out, but he said something to me that I think the American people would be interested in. He said, the Army loves the people. And then you've seen soldiers from the 27th Army coming in from outside of Beijing and clearly shooting people. But I don't think, having said that, I don't think we ought to judge the whole People's Liberation Army of China by that terrible incident. And so what I want to do is preserve this relationship as best I can. And I hope the conditions that lie ahead will permit me to preserve this relationship. I don't want to pass judgment on individual leaders, but I want to make very clear to those leaders and to the rest of the world that the United States denounces the kind of brutality that all of us have seen on our television.